So hi everyone, welcome to our next lesson, our new lesson, the Unit 2 classification of various art forms in the Philippines. So here, in this unit, we will discuss the materials and approaches used by the artists, ang material or medium. Tapos, the material or medium refers to what the artist uses in his creation, while the approaches or techniques deal with the methods involved in the process or artistic production. So this unit aims to give you a better analysis of the artworks and disciplines through an understanding of the materials and approaches that make each unique. Okay, we have here a picture by Carlos V. Francisco, or known as Carlos Botong Francisco. The pieces for feature, atong gamay na picture para maklaro na to ang kagamay, ka-cute. Okay, we have here the pieces or feature, wait, so we have here a picture. The pieces above feature same subject of heroism and nationalism of Bonifacio, yet they convey this message through different forms. So what do you think are the strengths and weakness of each form? So in the first picture, we have here Filipino struggles through history 1960 by Carlos Francisco. Kaning nasa left, kani siya. Tapos, ang kani naman, this is by Guillermo Tolentino, and it is made by kani siya, paint siyang isa kaning kay Carlos Francisco, and ang kani namang isa kay Guillermo Tolentino, it's actually a sculpture. So, what do you think are the strengths and weakness in each form? So, we have here guided sa atong essential question, what are the main differences in materials and approaches between performing arts and of course, visual arts? So, learning target nato here, we should be able to classify various art forms in the Philippines. Okay. Lesson 1, we have performing arts in the Philippines. So often, people define performing arts as the type of art which is actually performed. So while the definition is true, it is also circular and simplistic. Performing arts is complex form that requires a thorough discussion. So in this lesson, you will develop a more in-depth knowledge of performing arts, in its kind, materials, approaches, and elements. So we have here, performing arts involve a performer, usually a person, undertaking a certain actions and movements, usually accompanied by sound in a particular space, time, for an audience. So naa siya movements and actions, tapos na siya accompaniment sa sound in a particular space and time para sa audience. So what sets performing arts apart from the other art forms is how it uses the human body as a part of medium and its dependency on time and space. Moreover, performing arts is defined as interdisciplinary and how it integrates various art forms. So when we say performing arts, gani as we have discussed in the chapter 1, performing arts is actually kinesthetic. Kung si kinesthetic, usually nag-involve siya og lawas, movements na gina-portray. So there are 3 kinds of performing art forms classified according to the material nga ginagamit. So we have here auditory. When I say auditory, it is for music and which has the following elements. So kani siya, ginagamit ni siya sa kanang music, kanang mga kanta, ana siya. So we have here rhythm. When we say rhythm, the movement, fluctuation, or variation marked by the regular occurrence of natural flow of related elements. Ang iyahang flow sa music. When we say rhythm, ang flow niya sa music. So, unsa siya ka kining stable or unsa siya ka kaning ka kadako iyang wave good. That's what we call rhythm. So ang pitch, when we say pitch, highness or lowness of sound. So determine ninyo ni siya ang pitch. Pagbadunggan niyo ni charang kanang kanang kuan good kanang taas niya. So ana siya ang pitch. So when we say pitch, it differs upon or pasabot niya katong highness or lowness. Kung talinis ka kag tingog mo na makadum taasan ni mag-pitch oy ano man taas siya og maabtan at the same time taas pud siya ay mubo pud siya og kanang maabtan sa tingog. So ana siya. When we say melody naman, a rhythmic succession of a single tones organized as an aesthetic whole. So, sige. When we say melody, no, sa naman. When we say melody, ang pasabot niya, siya ang nagadala sa, siya ang nagadala sa kining particular nga, sa main tone or sa main nga kanang character sa music. So, kung makita ta og kanang mga tulo ka buok nga nagkanta kan mga trio. So pasabot na adyo siya melody ana. Ang melody siya ang nagadala sa tinuod nga tono sa kanta. So mao na ang melody. Ang musical notations naman, it is the act, process, method, or an instance of representing by a system or set of marks, signed figures, and characters used in music. Katong musical notes good, katong na ay half note, quarter note, whole note, mga 16th note, mao na siya. Including katong mga rests, mga staff, katong mga bar signs, katong flats, sharps, kato siya. So when we say harmony, sige ba, when we kanina we are talking about melody. Siya ang katong murag leader, siya ang nagadala sa main tone. We say naman harmony, ang combination of simultaneous musical notes in a chord. Pasabot, kung makita nato na siya, ang harmony, makita nato na siya, sila tong mga usually, katong ginaingon ko na itong mga second voice, katong mga second voices, sila tong mga panindot og maayo sa music. So, yun ana siya. Ginasudlan nila tong melody, gina-combine na nila tong melody, mauna ang tawag sa harmony. When we say timbre naman, it's a perceived sound quality of a music tone which sets apart from the other tones. This is maybe described as soft ba siya ang music, rough ba siya, kung rock siya, medyo rough yung timbre, hoarse ba siya, cold ba siya, kung mga love song. So, unsa ang particular timbre sa music nga ginagamit. So, ana siya, other similar adjectives. So, next is, we have here kinesthetic. Usually, makita nato ni siya nga mga particular kini part of performing arts sa dance, which has the following elements. What are those elements sa kinesthetic? Human body. Ang human body is the center of performance activity. Ginagamit nato ni siya para mag-perform of action and movements necessary to the piece. And with that, it is considered to be the main medium in performing arts. What is the main medium of performing arts, gani? We have human body. So, okay. Say arrangement or pattern naman, movements or steps which enable the performers to perform in an organized manner. So, that's what we call arrangement or pattern. So, unsa ang una niya nga movement, ikaduha niya nga movement, hantod and so on. Unsa ang mga movement ang ginabalik, that's the arrangement and pattern. Kanang ginaingon nato nga step, mga stepping. So actually, pag when we are talking about technical terms, dili siya dapat stepping because stepping is an adjective, it's a verb. So, pasabot, in action word siya. So, kung mangutana ta, mangayo taog ka ng kining steps sa ilaha, dapat steps ang term, dili stepping. So, unsa ang stepping karon? So, unsa atong stepping? So, mauni ang stepping, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, dili siya ingon ana dapat ang term. So, dapat ang term niyo gamiton, technically, steps lang siya. O, sige, mauni ang steps karon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, ingon ana siya. Ang time and space naman, performing arts depend highly on time and space. Ang time niya, ang duration, ang space naman is unsa kalawak ang iyahang mabutangan sa movement. The other elements must come all together to complement an available and selected time and space. So next is the dramatics. When I say dramatics, it is for theater and which has the following elements. Ang stage direction, when I say stage direction, instructions indicating movement, blockings, or positions, and other nuances in the performer's speaking, movement, and acting. So, nagabase ni siya diraa. And, ang narratology naman, it's the narrative structure of the piece. Katong ginabasa nila, ang pagkasunod-sunod sa piece. Ang scenic design naman, ang artistic design that creates ang background sa scene, kung asa sila, kung gusto sila ka ngit-ngit or gabi ilang scene, so dapat na po yung mga moon, ngit-ngit ang palibot, so nga ana siya, mao na trabaho sa scenic design. Okay, sa Philippines, performing arts is actually shaped by the country's long historical colonization characterized by the diverse cultural practices within the nation. So in general, Philippine performing arts have their roots in the indigenous practice are rituals. It is believed that the rituals of early Filipino ancestors is the very origins of theater arts in the country. So mao daw tong ilang ginabasihan katong mga rituals, mao daw tong very roots or very origin of theater sa country. So after all fulfills the necessary materials needed in theater, the shamans or the Babylons perform a ritual that involved going to a trance. Its choreography usually involves partaking of the animal sacrifice. So this is accompanied by the chanting of crowd, katong mga chants nila, and even rhythmic playing of indigenous musical instruments. Further, it is done usually in front of the audience or the entire community. So as you have learned in a previous unit, ang arts in the Philippines is influenced by the various, di ba last topic na to, influenced by the various colonizers that came and went to our country, which are the katong Spanish colonization, American colonization, and even itong Japanese colonization. These elements prevail until today, nagpabilin gyapon sila. For example, ang pasyon. Ang pasyon is still performed, especially in the rural areas, and the elements of vaudeville manifests in the various noontime television shows. Ang pasyon from the Spanish, ang vaudeville, it's actually where gidala na siya diri sa mga mga Spaniards gihapon. So, did you know that the first Asian women ever win in Tony Awards was a Filipina? So the award was rightfully earned by Lea Salonga for her role as a Kim in Broadway show Miss Saigon, which she took at the young age of 18 years old pa siya ato. And apart from that, she is also known for providing singing voices sa two Disney princesses, si Jasmine sa Aladdin and si Mulan of Mulan. I'm actually sad karon nakakita ko sa katong Mulan good nga tong gitaon na wala na tong kanta-kanta. So, kaya wala na tong essence sa Mulan. Sige lang. So, proceed to lesson 2, which the visual arts in the Philippines. So, sa unit 1, nabala nato ng various elements and principles of arts design. Katong mga elements remain when understanding arts. However, there are more to that in visual arts. So, in this lesson, you will learn about the considerations in visual arts and the various materials and approaches that makes it distinct from other disciplines. So we have here, some works of art are considered visual in nature. So in order for us to understand and appreciate the nature of visual art, it is important to distinguish the different forms of visual art. Mainly, there are 3 types of visual arts categorized according to their materials and approaches used. So we have here two-dimensional expression. When we say two-dimensional expression, 2D. So it is mainly flat because it has length and width as its dimension only. There are several techniques that utilize this, namely, so pasabot, ang 2D gani, picture lang siya, actually kanang picture or drawing or painting, that's two-dimensional expression. So unsay mga several techniques? We have here alla prima. When we say alla prima, also known as wet on wet, or when you paint over a layer of wet paint. That's what we call alia prima. And in caustic naman, it is known as hot wax painting, or when you add pigment to beeswax and use it to paint. So ang tempera painting, nag-a-add siya og pigment to water-soluble binder medium such as and katong egg yolk. So ginagamit as form of painting. Ang fresco, mural painting technique that involves painting over a fresh plaster. Fresh plaster, fresco. So fresh. So watercolor, katong usually atong mga naandan na form of painting, pigments are suspended in water-based solution na siya. Bason lang nato tong kuan, so mo color mo ano na yang color. Ang oil in canvas naman, na siya pigments to drying oil for binder. Nag-a-add siya pigments sa drying oil. Ang mosaic, it's part of two-dimensional, two-dimensional expression, kaya iyang kalahian is ang small pieces are assembled together. So kabalo naman mo ito sa una no, naka-project naman mo aning mga mosaic, yun ani katong itlog, dukdukon niyo ang mga balas, munggos, tas i-form niyo o picture, tas color-coloran niyo. So that's the example of mosaic. Ang stained glass naman, usually makita nato ni siya sa mga simbahan. Sa mga simbahan, when an artwork is made with colored, sa baasa ka ng pabuoy. Sige lang. Sa baa, Jude, uy. Sige. Okay. Ang stained glass na makita nato ng mga sa mga simbahan good, di ba, mga colored glasses na siya gina-form into arts and artwork. Ang tapestry naman, a textile or art woven on vertical loom. Ang drawing, dali naman siyang drawing. Using a writing material katong pen, pencil, marker to mark a two-dimensional canvas such as paper and form of an image. So, ang printing, mas recent na siya ang printing. When an image is formed as singular using a master template. So, i-print out lang siya dito. Ang photography naman, creating images with light. So, yun na siya. Next naman is three-dimensional expression sa visual arts. Sa visual arts gani katong makita lang siya. Makita nato siya. Apart from the length and width, three-dimensional object has its volume. So aside sa length and width nga makita nato siya, for example, ingon ani siya, this is actually 2D. 2D lang ni siya na example diri sa drawing. So mao ni siya ang example sa 2D nga drawing. Kita siya. Oh, that's an example of 2D nga sa drawing. Nalang siya kuan. Siya line, siya space, ngan ana siya. When we kini 3D naman, naa siya aside sa length and width niya, naapod siya volume. So kung kanilang atong tan-awon, it's 2D lang siya. Pero pag tan-aw na to sa kilid, it's actually naa siya volume. So pasabot 3D na siya, 3-dimensional expression na siya. So ingon ana siya. There are several techniques under this category. Namely, first is molding. When we say molding, it's reshaping a 3-dimensional object such as marble or plaster to create a new form. Kanang sa kaanggod, nagahimo og kaang. That's example of molding. Ang carving naman, katong gina-carve niya ang part sa material, often katong kahoy, kanang mga saints na ginaano sa mga Catholics. That's actually good example of carving. Ang etching naman, using a strong acid on a surface to create a design. So particular medium, tas butangan siya strong acid para maka-create siya og design. So that's etching. Ang installing naman, a site-specific artwork design to transform and include space in its message. So, nagipang-install niya ang mga gagmay nga mga forms hantod makabuo siya og isa ka particular nga artwork. Kuha? Okay. Multidimensional expression. When we say multidimensional expression, it uses length, width, mass, time, and space at each dimension, and it uses various techniques. Ang sayang mga techniques na siya lash construction, truss construction, post and lintel construction, cantilever, and arches. Okay. Mao na siya ang multidimensional na ana siya kompleto na tanan, uses length, width, mass, time, and space as dimensions. For example, kanang mga architectural designs, that's example of dimensional expression. Buildings, kana siya. Mga na naman gud diha tanan. Okay. Let's analyze. Di ba nakita niyo diri sa kanang sa artwork dira how does selected mode of expression, ang three-dimensional, affect the impact and overall mode of the artwork? Diba? Kung single lang ana siya nga kanang kuan, okay lang, mura siya picture, pero kung hikapon nimo siya, na siya 3D, so possible na siya volume, so that's 3D. So, how it affects, makadaot ba siya sa particular artwork, or makadungag siya og appeal, or makadungag siya og kanindot sa isa ka kuan? So here in the Philippines, visual arts is characterized by the manifestations of a wide array of cultural influence to the country. So specifically, it is marked by ethnic, Spanish, American, and contemporary traditions. So nag-combine na siya because of kining colonization here in the Philippines. So as you learned in Unit 1, early artworks by the indigenous peoples of the Philippines usually had a social and communal functions. As early as then, they were involved in sculpting, pottery, weaving, and other practices, especially kaning weaving. Sa una pa man pre-colonial, pre-Spanish colonial pa ni, nag-involved ning weaving. Apart from social utility, their visual artworks also usually had the spiritual significance, kanang mga sinina nila. God, dili ka pwede mong hikap-hikap dili ka pwede suoton, dili mo na sila pwede suoton because naa siya spiritual significance, labi na sa kanang mga Manobo tribe, labi na tong giweave jud nila nga mga sinina, kay ilan na nang giampuan. So it considered them as sacred na. For example, the patterns in their textiles suggested their religious beliefs. So, ana na siya. So as for the colonizers, their influence in the Philippines visual arts is significant and it remains prominent until today. So the Spaniards added a religious dimensions to painting and sculpting by making saints, kato, and mga biblical events and focus in its subjects, while the Americans saw a push and pull between liberated and conservative beliefs as it saw rise in more secular themes. When say secular themes, kato siyang outside the church na siya nga mga themes. Kaya because during the time sa Spanish colonization, we are actually binded by most of the religious beliefs, katong beliefs sa Catholics lang. Pero as the time nga niabot na ang mga Americans here in the Philippines, gipamulatan nila, gipamatatan nila that there are other forms of arts and themes nga pwede na to buhaton aside sa religious beliefs lang siya or religious themes. Today, ang contemporary art, visual art, is marked by how it rebels against the rules of form. With the rise of new media and advanced technological tools, more people are becoming open to experimentation and mixing of forms. So this is actually the knowledge or the concept of lesson 1 in unit 1, the integration of arts. So next week, your task is to create here. You will create your own visual art piece using a tool that is becoming more and prominent today. So the goal is to create an artwork that is uniquely portrays and showcases individual perception. For this unit's performance task, you will take photographs strictly using smartphone. Smartphone lang dyan atong gamiton, bawal ta mo gamit og atong mga devices like DSLR or other cameras. Smartphone lang ha. Remember, the goal here is not to come up with the highest quality image, remember, but to create a photograph that conveys the most meaningful message. Do not let technological limits affect your work. You may do this actually, individual na siya. Ayaw ning pairs and groups. So, dapat, nag-observe siya of following guidelines. Use the camera native to your smartphone. So, unsa ito'y camera sa inyong phone, maura na ang inyong gamiton. Editing and post-processing is prohibited. Pwede lang siya i-adjust ang lights and ang contrast, pero ang katong mag-edit-edit, nabutangan yung mga words, butangan yung ka ng mga kahoy-kahoy, dili na siya encourage. So, i-discourage na nako na siya. The photographs, 3 to 4 photos siya allowed to prompt home. So, dapat na mo 3 lang, 3 photographs. Nga dapat mag-connect siya sa message good, home. And you may interpret prompt however you like, as long as you can explain how you arrived this interpretation during the a show and tell in the class. So, yung ani lang atong button para mas dali siya. Okay. Dapat na isa ka picture, dili na tong 3 ha, isa lang ka picture, tapos isa pod ka picture sa, picture sa kining, isa ka picture sa katong picture jud ninyo, nga gikuha, tas dapat siya, ang iyang kuan lang natong theme is home. So, dapat very artistic siya pagkakuha. And, dapat na pod siya explanation. So, ang explanation ninyo, pwede niyo siya i-screenshot or pwede po ninyo siya katong true picture lang yapon. So, duha ka picture yung ipasa. Una, picture sa katong photograph video ninyo. Next is katong explanation ninyo atong picture. Kuha? Okay, mao ni ang criteria. Overall presentation and creativity, ang use of medium, and relevance to the theme. Home ang atong theme. Diba? So, to wrap up or summarize the unit, we have here ang dance, which is kinesthetic, under siya sa performing arts. Also, ang theater, dramatic, under siya sa performance art. And the music and auditory. Sa visual arts naman, we have 2-dimensional expressions, ang elements 2D, ang 3-dimensional, and multi-dimensional. So, mauna siya tanan. So, don't forget, ipasa inyong output next week, Thursday. Okay? Kasi nabot na. Bye, everyone!